Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Welcome all to I'll Hang Up and Listen for another unordinary, just run-of-the-mill, nothing out of the ordinary episode of I'll Hang Up and Listen. Brought to you by Outlet Liquor, the place to buy a case over on George Urban Boulevard. I am Duane, the host of Two Goalies. I'm Mike, joined by my co-host Connor Hurley. Hey, Hurls, I mean, what's there to talk about tonight? I really can't.
You were actually looking down, but I made this motion. Obviously, very jokingly. I would never joke about that type of thing, but just it's kind of how I feel right now. That moment of watching Jack Eichel lift the Stanley Cup and scream into the camera, it was almost as if he was screaming directly at me, directly at all of Buffalo. There was a little bit extra to his scream, I felt like. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's how I feel right now. I'm depressed, and it's going to take a long time to get over. Like your question posed in the tweet for this broadcast is, how should we feel? We should feel horrible. We should feel worse than we felt when Ryan O'Reilly won.
I do.
And won the Conn Smythe. It's 10 times worse. It feels like the Sabres just lost a consequential game. They might as well have just lost the Stanley Cup final. It obviously would have been worse if they'd actually made it to the final and lost to Jack Eichel. That would have been the worst thing imaginable. But maybe it wouldn't have, because at least they would have made the playoffs and they would have gotten there, which would have been odds against the world itself. So even that wouldn't have been as bad. It's really, really, really disheartening. And of course it happened. So in my drafts on Twitter right now, I have a very long thread. It started off, Jack Eichel, a thread. I didn't send it because I just don't know, because we're going to come on here and talk about it. I was going to try maybe kind of gauge the room, read the room a little bit before pressing send on that. But I'm going to kind of break it down right now. There's so many layers to this. There's so much to unpack. Because this is very unlike Ryan O'Reilly. As bad as Ryan O'Reilly was, I found a way for myself to be happy for him. Yeah, I did too.
I mean, it didn't take long. It sucked.
He's a good dude. He didn't trash the city or the fans. Like, he was just in a bad situation.
So, for me, there's a lot of layers to this as to why I can't bring myself to get over it. I can't get over it. And here's why. One, we tanked an entire season for this guy. We legitimately lost on purpose for an entire year. Had a carousel of 8 goalies in one season. Obviously the prize at the end of the tunnel was always Connor McDavid. It was. Granted, tonight Jack Eichel won a cup before Connor McDavid, but I still obviously there's no question who the better player is. There never will be. We literally put they literally put this fan base through turmoil to have the opportunity to draft one of those two players, and it ended up consequentially being Jack Eichel, which I was fine with. I was thrilled. I still have the Buffalo News front page from when we lost the draft lottery, and the titled "We Got Jack," and it was a picture of Jack Eichel with his hands up in the air. We celebrated the video Buffalo, I'm coming for you after he slammed down a Bud Light. He's like, oh my God, this guy is made for Buffalo. We were pumped. I was pumped. There was so much to be excited for when it came to Jack Eichel. And then he gets here. He's as advertised, right? He's as advertised. The kid is just a smooth skater. Phenomenal shot. Great hands. Great vision. Some stuff to work on, but who doesn't have stuff to work on as a rookie, as a 19-year-old kid in the NHL, with all these expectations and everything that came with him? But he was as advertised. And then you had went out and got Ryan O'Reilly. You had Evander Kane. You started bringing in pieces. You're drafting high. You end up drafting Rasmus Dahlin down the line. You make all these moves, and the O'Reilly thing happens. It was terrible. There was obviously a lot of speculation about part of it being some, having to do with Jack and the reason why he left. I don't know how much truth there is to that. I really don't believe much of it. But maybe there was some truth to it. I don't know. We'll never know, really, unless we hear it directly from him. So there's that. He's gone. A big piece of the puzzle that was supposed to be getting this team back on track. He's gone. He goes, wins the Stanley Cup. Whatever. Great. We're happy for him now. You make this kid captain. You give him the biggest contract in franchise history. Barely a year after, maybe a little bit year after that, you hear the rumors about, and it started reported by Elliot Friedman that he requested a trade. Behind closed doors, he requested a trade. Kind of put it to hush, never happened. We're not really sure what went down. Whatever. So you bring in this new coach, Ralph Kruger, right? Guy hasn't seen an NHL bench in almost a decade. Coached the European team in the World Cup to nearly a championship. A big underdog team. Did a very good job there. Impressed a lot of people. Guy was a snake charmer. Could talk his way out of a paper bag. Hire that guy, only assuming, because at that point you have a feeling that Jack Eichel starts to have a say in some of these things. You don't hire Ralph Kruger without consulting Jack Eichel. You just don't.
No,
you know what I mean. Not. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely not. He definitely had a say in it. He definitely at least signed off on it.
Yeah, just like Josh Allen had a say in promoting Ken Dorsey to OC.
I mean, he basically was the deciding force.
Yeah, he was. He was. So we all see how that worked out for us last season.
Yeah. I still have hope, but we don't know.
We do. Well, that's a whole other can of worms to open. But so bring this guy in. Another, you have a hot start to the season, 10-game winning streak, and you have a monumental collapse to end the year. And then that offseason, out of nowhere, with the help apparently of Ralph Kruger, you go and sign Taylor Hall to a one-year, $8 million deal. Where at a time, we're all pumped. It's Taylor Hall. This team had so many needs, and if you look back at it, and we'll use Florida as an example here. Florida signed Carter Verhaeghe and Anthony Duclair that same offseason for $1 million a piece.
Yeah.
$1 million a piece. $8 million could have been spent a lot more responsibly for this team, especially in that offseason during COVID when the cap wasn't going up and players were getting signed on short-term deals for dirt cheap money. You sign that guy. City's pumped. There, you see the sketches of him wearing a number 4 jersey next to Jack Eichel. It's all over Twitter, all over Instagram. The city's buzzing, absolutely buzzing.
Yeah. Season
starts. Jack, I wouldn't say he was off to a slow start in terms of scoring goals. He was still getting points.
Two goals.
He had 2 goals when he sustained that injury. Gets hurt. Taylor Hall says, well, I came here in hopes to do what Jeff Skinner did, play with Jack Eichel, score a shitload of goals, and then get paid. Didn't happen. Did not happen. That guy checks out. He's playing to not get hurt. I don't care. Anybody says that guy did so many drive-bys in front of the net rather than engaging in puck battles. I don't think I've ever seen a bigger waste of time and money than Taylor Hall in terms. I shouldn't say that, but he was a big, giant waste of time and money.
It was bad.
No movement clause. We're handcuffed. Kevin Adams, new GM, handcuffed. can't trade him for what his really true value is. You get an Anders Bjork and a second-round pick from Boston. What the fuck? Then the exit interviews come. Jack Eichel talks about disconnecting in terms of his injury. And then all that offseason starts. All you can hear about is, what's going to happen with Jack? Is he going to still be a Sabre? Is he going to come back? Is he gone? Then it comes to be, reality that he's going to be gone. He's not coming back. All the rumors with the Rangers. We ended up with a fucking billboard on the 190 here in Buffalo, paid by those douchebags from New York. That stupid podcast in regards aren't neck injuries, aren't injuries a pain in the neck or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it was a shot at us with Jack Eichel. You saw the hair. I'm sure you've seen the picture of the billboard off the 190 for a whole week. We have to go look at that every time we drive down the 190. I had to look at it. Cool. Add insult to all this. It's cool. Then finally the trade happens. You get Alex Tuck. Lifelong Sabres fan. That's awesome. Going to change the culture. Peyton Krebs, their top prospect in their pipeline, a guy who you thought you weren't going to be able to get. He's coming back in the deal. A first and a second round pick. Awesome. Great. That's fantastic. Happy with the deal. You were expecting more, but I'm so happy with what the return was. Then he gets on live TV with Elliot Friedman and tells his side of the story, which we already knew. We knew what was going on. And I would say more than 90% of this fan base was on his side. We were all on his side.
Yeah.
We wanted him to get this replacement surgery. Your body, your choice.
For sure. And just because he was the first hockey player to have ever done that surgery, Rafael Nadal.
Formed on hockey players before. It was the first time. And literally,
I remember
going down a rabbit hole with that one UFC fighter. I forget his name. He got it done. And I'm like, when did he get it done?
Rafael Nadal got it done. And he plays a very physically intensive sport. Like it wouldn't have been out of the question by any means, but the Sabres doctors didn't feel comfortable with it.
So I understood both sides of the fence. I get it. Because if it doesn't work out and he further injures that neck, guess what? You're on the hook for the entire contract. I understood it. I didn't agree with it, but I understood it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So, he gets the surgery, does that interview with Elliot Friedman where he cops to actually requesting that trade, which everything I just described, now it becomes so clear why you went out and signed Taylor Hall to a 1-year deal. Why this happened, why that happened. Like everything that you went through to get him to begin with, what you did to keep him happy. You paid him the biggest contract in franchise history. You named him captain when he wasn't clearly ready. Everything that you went through, and then he goes up there. He's like, I requested a trade. I didn't want to be part of a rebuild. Barely a year after he signs that deal, where they finished in the basement. Where did you think, Jack? You were going to go from last to first? No. Yeah. It was going to be a process, dude. It was. So all that, I'm thinking about all of this while I'm listening to this interview. And I still found a way to get over that a little bit.
Sure.
Like, whatever.
At its core, it was the surgery.
Yes.
And you can understand a guy for wanting to make that decision about his body and his life and his career, and a team not allowing him to do that, that would be a reason for a trade request.
At its core, it was the injury. But he did request a trade a year beforehand.
Yeah.
He did. So, and I truly do believe if the season still would have turned out the way it did and we finished where we finished, he probably still wants out.
Yeah, no, I could see it for sure.
He does. Then his homecoming game, first game back in Buffalo. Mind you, we all saw the interview. We all saw what he copped to. We all saw what he said. We all heard it. This organization, this fan base, they booed Dominic Hasek.
Yeah.
They booed Chris Drury. They booed Danny Briere. They booed Brian Campbell. They booed them all. Everybody got booed. What makes you so special? You think you're not going to get booed, Jack Eichel, after everything we went through for you? Everything, the misery, the turmoil, everything we went through to get you and to keep you happy. That fucking horseshit coach we hired who put us through an 18-game losing streak, we hired him You signed off on it. You said you loved him. Oh, you love his taste in music. That's cool, Jack. Well, he sucked. He neutered Rasmus Dahlin. I guess because of him, we got Owen Power. Thanks, Ralph. But you want to know what? He put fucking Jeff Skinner on the fourth line. He healthy scratched him every other night. We hired that guy for you. You were happy with him. We went out and got Taylor Hall for you. That was for you. When we needed that money, spent so many. We could have signed Carter Verhaeghe. We could have signed Anthony Duclair for $2 million. But instead we paid that asshole $8 million to score 4 fucking goals or whatever it was. I don't even think he had 5 total goals for the Buffalo Sabres.
It was bad. It was bad.
It was so bad. He fucking he hung him up after you got injured. I'm calling it a day here. I'm not going to sit here and put my season on the line and risk injury when I'm going to go into free agency. I'm not going to risk my payday. We did that for you, and you don't think you're going to get booed your first game back?
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here, dude. And then you sit there, you tuck your tail between your legs, and you fucking take shots at the fans. The same fans who, again, as I said, they booed all those players.
Yeah. Who
have so much more credibility in this city than you. We had so much more success with them than we ever did with you. And we booed all of them.
Yeah.
And you took shots at the fans.
And I obviously, that is the point where obviously he turned from former hero to heel, and he will always be that for that one interview. But as you so eloquently described, this is a longer process leading up to that than just that interview. Obviously, I think sometimes like people do forget given everything that's happened, but at the same time, like his immaturity that he showed that night. And I think this harkens back to a lot of immaturity that he showed throughout the process of being a Buffalo Sabre. As we said, I think coming in, his reaction to Tim Murray being so pissed about not winning the lottery, that didn't help. He could have came in with a chip on his shoulder and had a better attitude to begin with, but it didn't appear that he did. And as you said, he probably wasn't ready for the captaincy. I mean, he is a young guy at that point, maybe 22, 23, has a lot of younger guys around him aside from Kyle Okposo and Zemgus Girgensons and a few other guys, but he's still a relatively young guy put in charge to lead a team. He wasn't ready. Obviously, he had a couple really good seasons, and he was everything we thought he was going to be as a player. I think it was the 2018-2019 season. A lot of people thought he should get votes for the Hart Trophy, and maybe he even did because he is that type of player. Nobody's ever disputed how good he is. He's not McDavid. Nobody ever will be, but he's very, very good. But the immaturity and the lack of perspective that he showed for that first game back as a Golden Knight, when, mind you, he made a horrible play along the boards, a low effort play in my opinion, and Alex Tuch took the puck away from him, stripped him, went down the ice, scored an empty netter, celebrated as he should have. You had to imagine he was pissed. But the immaturity and the lack of perspective that he showed to not realize that he might be booed that game, and to maybe not necessarily take it as personally as he did, and also take shots at a long-suffering fan base that supported you through thick and thin up until this point, for you not to realize maybe that could happen, and even if you did, to still react that way, that shows everything you need to know about his character, and it makes all of those rumors about him being a bad locker room guy, a bad teammate, a bad dude outside of the hockey rink that we all heard. I don't need to make this personal, but everybody heard that. That's what makes this hurt so much. It's because of all of the hurt that this fan base and this city has gone through with everything. To have all that hope, to have all that trust, to place the type of faith that we did in him, for it to all come back to bite us in the horribly crippling way that it did, and for it to now completely culminate and climax and transpire in the way that it has now. It's just the cherry on top of a shit Sunday.
If he would have handled himself differently on the way out, if he wouldn't have done that interview, which again, in my opinion, was so uncalled for, he didn't have to do it. No. He could have been like, yeah, man, you know what? Fan base has been through enough. I'm gonna say no to this. Like, it was such a PR stunt, and then, piggyback that his first game back after he returns from injury. The comments after, like you said, you just think back to everything this fan base had been through before we drafted him, and then we go and draft him, because it was like already a 10-year playoff drought when we drafted him.
Yeah,
you draft him.
Well, 4 years technically. I mean, 2011 to 2015. So
sorry, yeah. Well,
4 to 5 years, but basically 8 to 9 years without any type of real success whatsoever.
We're at 7. I'm sorry, not 17. We're how many years? We're at 12 years. Sorry.
I'm
thinking 17 as in Bills. I got
since we won a playoff series in 2007.
Yeah. Regardless, everything, ownership and management put us through. And again, Jack Eichel on the ice in Buffalo, phenomenal.
Incredible.
He was an unbelievable player. He made this team watchable. He made them exciting. I renewed my season tickets multiple times because he was on this hockey team.
I watched every game from the West Coast because of him. The beginning to the 2018-2019 season, 10 games in a row, culminating with Jeff Skinner overtime winner against the San Jose Sharks. Eventually, Jack goes on an absolute tear at the end of the 2019 season. I think he had it was 82 points in 78 games or something like that. Point per game player, Hart Trophy consideration. Obviously, the season didn't end the way they wanted.
I would say he was the front runner.
Yeah.
Before that one injury, it was.
I forget when it happened, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It was like he was literally, there was nobody in the league better than him. He was the best player in the world. And he was the best player in the world at that time. There was no debate.
The craziest thing is that, like, it's obvious he's never going to get to McDavid level, but I think he has the ability to be the second best player in the world. I really do. Yeah. And
he's a top 5 for sure.
And I don't think anybody would disagree with that at this point, given what he just showed in these playoffs.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth it for us to talk about that. Like, he was very much deserving of the Conn Smythe.
100%.
I'm personally happy.
I did have Marchessault ahead of him.
If he got it, like, I wouldn't have said he didn't deserve it.
Like, I had Marchessault ahead of him. I mean, he was just a goal scoring machine for Vegas. Scored a lot of big goals.
A lot of clutch goals.
It's probably a better story for the NHL because it was against Florida, the team who left him unprotected.
And original Golden Knight expansion draft.
Exactly. So it made sense.
They threw him a bone. They threw him a bone there, but you could tell as the camera panned to right as he was awarded the award, he was talking to Jack Eichel. Yep. And I guarantee you he said, "You deserve this award." Yeah. I can promise you that. Hockey players are obviously we before me. They're very selfless, but I know for a fact that's what he said. And it was cool. 100%. And it was cool of Eichel to be the first person to hug him. I hope he's a better teammate now.
I do, dude.
I hope he's matured. I hope that his teammates love him. I hope that he's a better person. I wish no ill will on this person. I really do not. That would be very petty of us as Sabres fans to wish this person ill will for the rest of his career. I don't wish that at all. He's a great player, and I don't want him to get hurt. I want him to continue to succeed. Hopefully not with the Bruins someday. That would be even worse than this. But I will say this, like, he was incredible this postseason. I didn't get the chance to watch all of it, but from what I saw in this series, you could tell how incredible of a playmaker he is and what type of player he can be.
Hurls, there's no debating that. There was never debating it in Buffalo, how incredible a player he was. There's no debating it in Vegas, how good of a player he was. He was surrounded with a better culture than what we had here in Buffalo, better management, better coaching, better staff. Like, he wasn't expected to be a leader in Vegas, which is why I think it's worked out more for him. Outside of the fact that, I mean, they were already a cup contending team to begin with. For sure. So yeah, I listen. I'm not surprised that they won the cup because that team was built to win to begin with.
And add Aiden Hill on an absolute tear,
on a Jordan Binnington Binnington run.
Exactly, and like people say, oh, 4th string goalie, 5th string goalie, goalies don't matter. He mattered this playoffs. He was incredible. He was the best goalie in the playoffs, and he was probably number 3 for the Conn Smythe. If you had to,
surprised he was.
If you had to boil it down in terms of the votes, But yeah, I mean, that's what it takes. And like we talked about, the Vegas depth was way too much for Florida to handle. And as you just mentioned, their best player, Matthew Tkachuk, had a cracked sternum.
Yep, a cracked sternum. And Brady Tkachuk, his brother, had to help him out of bed.
Sternum's like your chest bone, correct?
Game 4.
It's your chest bone?
Yeah.
It's like the bone that's in between your lungs.
Yeah.
Like right here, like imagine getting like punched directly in your sternum. Yeah. I think that's like a figure of speech. Like I'd rather do this and like get punched in the sternum than do this.
You look at that team without Tkachuk on the ice. I'm not saying they would have won a night with him, but you see the impact he has.
Way more competitive. Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like
as soon as you heard he wasn't going to play, you knew they had no chance.
Yeah, it was. He's so dynamic. What he brings to the ice, on the puck, away from the puck, around the net, in front of his own net, like just the style game he plays. And unfortunately, with the style game he plays, you kind of put yourself out there. The injuries like this,
for sure. Absolutely.
Obviously, the hit by Kolasar was a direct a response to his hit on Eichel. Both were clean hits. You know, there's no debating that.
Keep your head
up. But still, yeah. Hats off to Vegas. I hated that they've won a Stanley Cup before us.
Hear me out, though. Like, I think it is ultimately good for the league. And
yeah, it's good for
the fact that they've been so successful basically every single year since their formation. The fact that they're the first sports team of probably 4 professional sports teams that are going to be in Vegas by the end of the decade. They're about to get the A's. They're going to get an NBA expansion team. Las Vegas went from having 0 professional sports teams to having 4 in probably less than 10 years.
If they get the Oakland A's, do they keep Billy Beane as the GM?
Probably. I would say so. Like
it'd be cool to see him win a World Series with a big
like he's done such a great job. Like I couldn't see why not. But the fact that a hockey team in the middle of the desert in a city that a lot of people said professional sports wouldn't work in Vegas. Well, they've proven more than you possibly could have without a shred of a doubt that professional sports can exist in Vegas, and they will exist in Vegas for the rest of time until the world engulfs us probably by the end of the century. The Raiders are successful. The A's are going to be successful. They're going to get a professional basketball team. LeBron James is going to own Las Vegas's professional basketball team. He's already said that that's what he wants to do after his career, and he's going to do that. And you can't even imagine the enormity of that. But everyone's going to think back to in the fall of 2017, right after that mass shooting at the country concert at Mandalay Bay, the city coming together for a hockey team, for probably expansion guys that other teams didn't want, that nobody had ever heard of. Had you heard of Jonathan Marchessault before he was on the Vegas Golden Knights? I personally hadn't.
I remember being very surprised that Florida left him unprotected.
Yeah, I mean,
because he was a good player for them.
Good player, but also not a star. You know, like not a household name for a casual NHL fan. No. William Karlsson, Shea Tudor was obviously pretty good, but like a lot of these guys, even William Carrier or Brady McNabb, who eventually came over. Marc-Andre Fleury, obviously a big name, and he came in and he played well. But thinking back to 6 years ago, it is a really, really cool story. And had the Eichel thing not happened, I'd be way happier for this team than I am right now. Obviously, a little bit petty because of that. But like I said, I'm not unhappy for the guy. I'm glad that he was able to get the surgery he wanted, that he's healthy.
I'm happy that he's healthy, yes.
I'm happy that he's healthy. I'm that he's thriving, that he's going to be able to continue his career for the next 8 to 10 years. Good for him. Obviously, we just have a little bit of salt in the wound after everything we went through. As you eloquently described, it was a saga, and it always will be a saga.
There were the people who say get over it. The only really is there were so many layers to this.
Yeah, as you said, like it's way bigger than one post-game interview.
It's more bigger than a surgery because this was happening before the surgery, before the injury. Like this started well before then.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of layers to it. It's a lot to unpack. You know, again, just to reiterate, much shorter this time. You have the rumors about the trade request. Then you go and you fire Phil Housley. you bring in Ralph Kruger, a guy who hasn't been behind an NHL bench in over a decade, been managing a soccer team. Jack Eichel signs off on it, says he loves the guy. They start off, the season hotter than any team in the league. Then a monumental collapse. Then again, you hear those rumors pop up again. And then Taylor Hall is signing with the Buffalo Sabres, 1 year, $8 million. Wants to play with Jack Eichel, wants, play under his former coach and Ralph Kruger from Edmonton. That all falls apart. Jack gets hurt. Taylor Hall packs it in, says, I'm not going to get hurt. I'm going to protect my future. I'm not going to, risk injury and losing out on a big contract. That's the way he played. I don't care what he says. I don't care. Analytics say that's how he played. If you watched him, that's how he played. Then you get boned in the return there. The value isn't what you want it because of the no movement clause. Kind of a rookie mistake maybe on Kevin Adams' part, giving a guy like him a no movement clause on a 1 year deal. And then exit interviews, disconnect on the injury, the comments from Jack and Sam, everything that came with that. And then just the off season, just constant trade rumors, billboards from Rangers fans, embarrassment. Then you get the trade. You're happy with the return. Wish it was more, but you're more than happy. Alex Tuck is fucking psyched. And then, interview with Elliot Friedman. Yeah, I did request a trade. All that was true. Didn't want to rebuild after he signed that fucking franchise deal, biggest deal in franchise history. Homecoming in Buffalo. For some reason, doesn't think he's going to get booed, even though he booed Hasek, booed Briere, booed Drury, booed Campbell. He doesn't think he's going to get booed. Gets booed. I guess they're booing me because they want me. They wish I was still here. Never heard the building this loud. Like the 10-game winning streak never happened. Okay. I was there for 3 of those home games. It got louder. Trust me. And just everything that came after that, just all the layers, starting from tanking for the guy and just everything that we put ourselves through, what the organization put us through, you've seen fans. There's still pictures out there on Google and Twitter. You can find them seeing fans actively cheering for this team to lose.
Yeah. I mean, I got into a number of arguments with media members, friends, family, everyone about the ethics of that and the slippery slope that it creates when you do something like that, both as a franchise and a fan base. For you to actively be rooting for another team in your own building, you can silently do it. But when the Arizona Coyotes score and you're wearing a Sabres jersey and you get up and stand and clap, it's embarrassing. No matter which way you want to put it, whether it's good for the franchise or not, it's embarrassing. And I was at least silently supportive of it, of the actual tank. And of course, like it needed to happen for the franchise. But for you to outwardly do it, it's embarrassing as a fan. And as a media member, guys at GR were just openly lauding it. I hated the entire thing. But it
sucked to be a part of.
Those are some of the scars that we still have.
And don't get me wrong, in my living room, when Chicago came back down from 2 to beat us in a game that we needed to lose to maintain last place, in my living room by myself, I fucking clapped because just like you, I knew this needed to happen.
You don't do that in the building, though.
No, it's not in the building. You're not getting up and cheering. That's why I didn't go to many games that year, man. And I remember in a post-game interview, Mike Weber was just like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, we're out here playing for you, we're representing you, and you're cheering us when we lose. You're cheering us when we get scored on. And then people in this fan base criticize Mike Weber for being defensive. Like, no, I understood it.
Yeah,
I would feel the same way if my own fans were.
You felt the worst for the players. You felt the worst for the players. You felt the worst for the goalies. I think it was. God, I always forget.
Neuwirth was in there.
Neuwirth was great.
We had Jeff Hackett for a couple.
The big tall guy. I forget his name. Big tall blonde guy who was incredible. And then they got rid of him because
they traded him because he was playing too well.
Yeah,
they wouldn't bring up they wouldn't allow Ted Nolan to bring up players.
Yeah,
that wasn't allowed.
It was really bad. And for the people that say get over the Jack Eichel thing, everything you just described and that you described earlier in more depth, that's all part to it. It's all part of it. It really is. And it's part of the trauma that we have as Sabres fans and as Bills fans and as Buffalo sports fans, because as stuff like this continues to happen, Ryan O'Reilly leaving, winning the Conn Smythe, Jack Eichel leaving, and in his first full season winning a Stanley Cup, probably should have won the Conn Smythe. These are the types of things we feel cursed as a fan base, as a city, as a community of people. Everything that's happened to Buffalo in the past year and a half, all of the trauma that exists in the history of this city, let alone not just the sports, everything. It used to be a top 20 populous city in the U.S., an economic hub. And now people struggle to get jobs. People are moving out still. Thankfully, its economics are getting a little bit better, and I think they will continue to. But there is so much pain and trauma involved in being from Buffalo. Whether you're a sports fan or not, the segregation, the poverty, the crime, everything involved with being a Buffalonian hurts sometimes because you're so proud of it. You're so proud to be from Buffalo. I haven't lived in Buffalo for 8 years. No, more than that. 12 years since high school. I haven't lived permanently in Buffalo since the summer of 2010. It is the summer of 2023, so 13 years. I am never been as proud to be a Buffalonia. I'm never as proud to talk about being from Buffalo as I am in Los Angeles, in people that constantly shit on the city, having never have gone there. And I think a lot of people, 95% of people from Buffalo, do the exact same. And it's because we all feel the same way, that same sense of pride of being from the city. That's why this hurts. It will continue to hurt because of it, and it always will until something good finally happens. And that's the hope that we have, and it's going to make it that much more worth it when it finally happens.
Yeah, and listen, I hate that this overshadows the excitement.
And I think we should eventually move on to that. And I honestly, I was going to bring up a point to eventually transition to that. How do you feel? How do you think Alex Tuch feels tonight?
I think he's mature enough to not feel anything.
I think Alex Tuch does not feel. I think he's happy for his teammates. He's happy for his guys that he played with and fought with and got within 2 games of in 2018. But there is not a shred of doubt in my mind that 95% of what Alex Tuch is feeling right now is gratefulness, happiness, and excitement that he's a Buffalo Sabre.
100%. Oh, in terms of watching Vegas win a cup. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm sure that there's part of you, a small part of him that's like, man, that could have been me. But at the same breath, it's like, well, I'm living out a childhood dream right now. I'm representing the Sabres.
Even Peyton Krebs. I think he feels the same way too.
Potentially, I could be the next captain of the Buffalo Sabres, living out a childhood dream.
And I think
playing with Tim Conley.
I don't think anyone would object to him or Darlene being the captain.
No. And listen. Like I said before, I hate that this is going to overshadow the excitement of.
And honestly, it should just for tonight.
Yeah, well, you know it's going to last longer than that.
The summer's long, but like we talked about, as soon as the draft and free agency comes around, I'm going to forget about it. I hope you can too, because like at this point, it's out of our control, right?
Yeah.
Nothing that we can do or spend any amount of mental headspace on Jack Eichel winning a Stanley Cup is completely out of our control. And all we can do as fans now is look towards the future. I honestly think that is going to help. And when they make the playoffs next season and they eventually go on runs in the next 3 to 4 to 5 seasons, it's all going to make it worth it. It really will.
Listen, I just don't want the mindset of fans having been through this for a second time and it being much, 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 much worse this time to look at next season as like, we have to be successful. I mean, the expectation is to get with, we have to get like, we should let next season be what it is, not add as fans this added.
No, there's no added pressure because Eichel won a cup.
But I just hope that doesn't happen.
And I mean, if people decide to do that, like choose your own adventure. Like, add more trauma to what you already have. You don't need to do that to yourself. There's no reason to.
I just don't want that to happen because this is such a good group of guys, a fun group of guys. I
really don't think that's going to happen. I hope it doesn't.
I just hope as fans, we don't look at this, take this and be like, fuck, we lost the trade, or we need to win soon in order for this to not look like. I really hope that's not what happens here.
I honestly still think it was a fair trade for both sides. Just
for sure. In my mind, yes. Yeah, I would do it again. I would do it again. If the circumstances were the same, if I couldn't change the circumstances, if Jack was hurt, granted, obviously, I think we would want this version of Jack Eichel in Buffalo for 8 years, healthy and playing at an MVP level for sure. But at the end of the day, I look at what Alex Tuch brings to the culture of this team on and off the ice. The guy, if he played an entire season healthy this year, was a 90-point player.
Yeah.
Would have outscored Jack Eichel in the regular season.
And he's a guy can play in the playoffs too.
Yes, and has that experience, and these players look up to him, and you can't replace that.
No,
right now, what that means to this team.
And I think even adding Krebs in the first round and second round picks to the mix, it's a fair trade. And it reminds me not to open up another can of trauma, given what transpired this morning, but the Stephon Diggs to the Vikings trade. That was a fair deal because the pick that Buffalo traded to the Vikings turned out to be Justin Jefferson, who is arguably a better receiver than Stephon Diggs.
Yeah. And younger.
And obviously Diggs is a diva, and we're going through the Stephon Diggs experience right now. That's fine. I think it's all going to work out.
I saw a funny, I'm not sure if it was a tweet. No, it's in my group chat. It said T.O. walked so Diggs could run.
Honestly, yeah.
That made me mark out a little bit. That was funny.
Is a top 5 wide receiver. Jamar Chase is going to do this exact same thing. Justin Jefferson is going to do this exact same thing. This is what diva wide receivers do. So we don't need to get.
And it's not about the money with Diggs. It's about
wanting the culture and the targets
and not being happy with the direction of the team.
We don't need to get into that. I just say
again,
from a comparison standpoint, though, like those are two very fair deals for both sides when trading a superstar. And like Diggs wasn't even a superstar at that point, and you didn't know what Justin Jefferson was going to turn into. You traded a legitimate bona fide superstar in Jack Eichel for what many thought was a role player. Turns out in a bigger role, Alex Tuch is close to a star player. Tage Thompson's a superstar. Alex Tuch is a top 20, 25 player in the league, maybe forward, who knows. Either way, like it worked out as well as it possibly could have. And that's the type of thing that makes me excited for the future. As we discussed last night, Kevin Adams knows how to make that type of deal. He made the Devin Levi deal for Sam Reinhart. We saw what Sam Reinhart could do in these playoffs. He's a very good player.
Here's the difference between Jack and Sam on their exits. Sam called back Kevin after 20 minutes after the trade, and not that he had to apologize, but he felt bad about the way things ended, and things in Buffalo didn't that took a lot of class.
He's a good kid. Everybody knows Sammy's a good kid. He's an understated guy. I would have been so
underappreciated by this fan base for sure.
Yeah, and he's a chill, cool dude. I mentioned earlier, I would have loved to see the broadcast cut away, and they should have had a camera on them at all times. I would have loved to see Jack Eichel and Sam Reinhart in the handshake line. Those two were tight. The tandem bicycles, everything they went through, all of the pain and suffering and everything else in those 5 years they spent together. I want to see that moment that they hugged and exchanged words with each other after a hard fought series.
Yeah.
And that's it. And we're never gonna be able to see that because the broadcast never showed it.
Listen, will we ever hear a legitimate apology from Jack Eichel?
I don't think so. I think
even if we did, that ship has probably sailed for fans.
That ship has sailed. I think he's moved on.
Yeah,
we've moved on.
Let me finish thought. I'm not. But you look at players like the way Sam handled it with grace and acceptance. that's a guy I'd welcome back with open arms if that opportunity ever came back. And I think Kevin Adams would welcome back.
And we talked about Ryan O'Reilly last night too.
Yep, we did.
If Brandon Montour was ever available, gosh, I would love to have Brandon Montour back.
Yeah.
I would love to have Braden McNabb back. I would love.
That's a guy they should never let. I hated the fact that we let Braden McNabb go.
I would love to have anyone not named Jack Eichel back.
Yeah.
Be honest. So at this point, we can be upset. It's unfortunate. It's shitty that this happened. But at the end of the day, there's a lot to look forward to. There are so many things that we specifically discussed last night about the possibility of getting a guy like Tom Wilson, offer sheeting a guy like Keandre Miller, signing a guy like Semyon Varlamov or Freddie Anderson.
Keandre Miller all day. I'm excited.
Trading for Marc-Andre Fleury, signing Tristan Jarry, trading for Connor Hellebuck or UC Saros. There are options, cap space, young prospects, everything you could ever want in a hockey team the Sabres have right now, aside from the success, which hasn't happened yet, but it's coming soon. Stay tuned.
Hope so. I truly do believe.
And at this point, if it doesn't happen, we're used to it, right? We are used to the trauma. We're used to the suffering. Buffalo is a resilient.
I can't handle any more mental.
But hear me out. No matter what happens, we'll always be there at the end of every Bills season, especially after the Bengals game, the day after, that week after the Bengals game this season. Everyone talked about, I'm done with the Bills. I'm done with all this BS, McDermott, Dorsey, everything else. As soon as we drafted Dalton Kincaid, as soon as we signed some of these free agents, everybody's talking about how it's one of the best offseason in Brandon Beane's tenure. Same with the Sabres after everything that happened with Eichel, everything that happened. You saw the encouragement from this past season. You saw the excitement. That last month is the most fun I've had as a Sabres fan since 2007. April of 2023 is the most fun I've had as a Sabres fan, partially because of this, partially because of all the engagement we're getting, but partially because this team is fun and exciting. And that is what we have to look forward to. And I hope a lot of people can get over this really, really shitty thing that happened tonight.
It'll take a while.
Yeah, but it's going to. You're going to forget about it.
I can tell you right now, I will not listen to sports radio for the next 48 hours.
No, and you don't need to. Read a book, go outside. Sports are over for a little bit unless you like baseball. But it's just, I don't know. I think that I honestly do believe that this type of thing, this type of trauma is going to make it that much sweeter when they finally do it.
Here's a tweet. Here's a quote from Bob in the locker room after the game. It's a huge step, not only with what we learned what we learned in those 2 months, but how close to each other we got. We won together. We lost. We lose together. I'm proud these guys competed all the way.
Yeah, and that comes from a guy that's not the most outspoken dude either.
He's not, and it sucks because, again, coming into the finals, he was in my opinion, the clear as day front runner for the Conn Smythe. He was the reason, along with Tkachuk, that I thought this series was going to be Panthers in 6. Didn't work out that way. I don't blame Bob at all. Even with the amount of goals that were let in tonight, I don't see how you could blame Sergei Bobrovsky. The team just fell short offensively, defensively. Again, we're not going to blame, put anything on officiating tonight because, they got boat raced. But I mean, I'd even say the league was more leaning towards Vegas than they were Florida. Because they, like we mentioned at the top of this show, what this means in terms of the success of the league, getting this to work in Vegas, getting them a championship. You saw their reactions. You saw how the crowd, how loud they were. I'm sure how they're
not that loud, in my opinion. And like you mentioned earlier, they didn't boo Gary Bettman. So are you really a hockey fan?
Yeah, they haven't learned yet. They haven't been let down by Gary Bettman yet.
I mean,
they don't know.
I don't think many of them actually know hockey.
No.
They're bandwagon fans. No. And they got a team to come to their city, and it was the first professional sports team. I don't blame them at all for not being as knowledgeable at the sport as we are. But in my opinion, I think those last 5 minutes should have been louder. I think it made me think about what Key Arena would be like in the last 5 minutes if the Sabres were up 6 goals, about to win their first Stanley Cup championship. Like, I can't even. It would be deafening. Like, you would have to put on headphones, like noise canceling headphones, and you'd still hear it.
Yeah. You forget that that Phil Kessel's a Stanley Cup champion again.
Shout out Phil Kessel. They didn't dress him for a game. Yeah. Jonathan Quick, Stanley Cup champion.
Backup.
He was the 7th person to raise the cup tonight. I mean, he didn't play a game.
I don't think he played a single minute.
He didn't. He played a few games down the stretch for them, but that's a nice way for him to end his career. I think he'll probably retire. I really do. Yeah. Alec Martinez, I think it was 9 years to the day on June 13th, 2014, that he scored the game-winning goal in overtime to beat the Rangers in the Stanley Cup final for the Kings. Alec Martinez is a celebrity around here. People love those Kings teams as much as anything in this city, especially in the South Bay, over where I play men's league hockey at the Kings facility. Dustin Brown, Alec Martinez, Anze Kopitar, Jonathan Quick, all those guys are absolute rock stars down here. Nobody else in the rest of LA knows them, but in the South Bay of LA, those guys are rock stars. And Alec Martinez is now, I think, 3-time Stanley Cup champion. A lot of good stories on this team. Mark Stone, I think nobody can discredit the type of game Mark Stone plays. He was a very deserving captain. Got traded there as a superstar, came in, earned the respect of the locker room, battled back from injury, and scored a hat trick in the clinching game. There are so many.
I thought the Panthers should have started the period with no goalie personally.
It might have been better. And it sucks, as you mentioned, for a guy like Bob. Finally gets there, has the type of run he's capable of, plays the way everybody knows he can play, and then he gets to the final and the team runs out of gas in front of him.
What was your opinion of that second goal?
Which one? Remind me again.
He made the blocker save. He went down to cover it. Whistle.
I thought the whistle blew. I did.
There's a continuation rule where if the play was going to continue with the puck going that while the whistle went. I don't understand that rule at all. I mean, personally, it's no good. It should have been a goal to me.
No, Greg Wyshynski tweeted out that the whistle blew before the puck went in the net, and also if the puck is under the goalie for at least a couple seconds, as it was, that is the ref's responsibility to say, I lost the puck. I can't see it. They call that all the time. And of course, Jack Eichel pokes his stick in there, frees it loose, and they put it in the net. I mean,
I don't know if that
they were going to lose.
Call not being called, and Ekblad obviously scored in the second.
They were going to lose regardless.
They were probably going to lose.
They were going to lose. I'm not going to lose sleep over that. We can discuss the officiating, but at the end of the day, Vegas was the better team. They deserved to win.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Jack Eichel's a Stanley Cup champion. He is not a Conn Smythe Trophy winner. Good luck getting that one, Jack. I
don't think he cares too much about that right now.
No. I think he does, though, just a little bit. I think he really wanted that. I think he wanted to take the Ryan O'Reilly path. I really do. And as like reported as the rift between those two guys was, I guarantee you he wanted it. He's not going to tell anybody that, but in his own brain, and
maybe he would. Who knows?
And people closest to him, I guarantee you he wanted that.
Yeah,
he would have posted a picture with both trophies. You can bet your ass he would have.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I mean, hear me out. That assist that he set up on that second goal, where he's on a 2-on-1, toe drags around the guy, brings it to his backhand. Does that remind you of any goal from Sabres history?
Oh, yeah.
The Tampa Bay game, New Year's Eve. They were up 4-1, 4-0. They eventually lost the game. It was horrible. But he finished that goal. And I do not think he may just not have it right now, but he doesn't have the same finishing touch that he used to.
Listen,
he's not scoring nearly as many goals as he used to. He's a playmaker. I'll give him that.
He doesn't have to be that guy, though.
He doesn't have to be. But wouldn't it be like a little bit worse if he was scoring these ridiculous goals?
Yeah. Listen, he provided us with a lot of great memories as Sabres fans before the drama of everything that happened. One of the more memorable ones is, scoring against Toronto and telling the fans to hush in the corner, these fans. Like that right there just really turned me. I was like, yeah, like let's bring that rivalry back to life. And
for sure,
Jack was embracing it. You would hope that Austin Matthews would have embraced it. Making that rivalry up the QEW relevant again.
The overtime goal against the Predators,
Yeah,
where he went coast to coast.
Unbelievable goal.
Got it to the middle and had one of the best shots I've ever seen in overtime. I think it was probably Saros at that point. The overtime goal where Evander Kane flipped it up to him, and I think it was in 3-on-3 overtime. And you have that shot of Rob Ray sitting back in his chair, smiling, and it was RJ and Rob Ray.
He went 5-hole.
Yep, sitting back in their chairs, smiling. I think that was his rookie year.
Yep.
The Eichel Tower. Everybody always heard about it.
How good he was.
You can't discount the things he did in the community. I think he probably was told to do those things, but he didn't have to. There were a lot of really good memories. There's a lot of really painful ones too.
Listen,
both of those things can exist at the same time.
I still own 3 Jack Eichel jerseys, and
thank God
for me, it would have been nice to a few years down the line still be able to wear it. But I can't bring myself to do that.
Why would you? Why would you?
It's impossible for me because of the way things ended. Because he did do some good things in the city here. He was involved with the community.
Yeah.
Defended it tooth and nail. How he bought flowers for nurses on Nurses Day. All at Roswell Park. He went out of his way for people, visiting sick children. I do think that some stuff was taken out way too far in the media about who he was. I do believe the failures of this team while he was here were not directly on him. It was management and mismanagement of assets and players and coaching and firings and hirings. And again, I then, and I wouldn't change how much I defended it because it was true. But I wish how he would have left with grace and not the way he did, because this would have been an easier pill to swallow. I'll get over it. You'll get over it. We'll get over it. But at the end of the day, this stings because of everything we went through to get him, to keep him. But now we have a guy that I think the community can embrace even more than we ever could have, Jack Eichel and Alex Tuck. A guy who does the shout song at Bills, amongst the people at Bills games. You see him in the community constantly. He was just at Dave and Adams, cracking open boxes of Kyras with our buddy Alex Lemire, Miracat.
Soon to be new father, Alex Tuck too. They just announced that. Yeah.
Get married, or is he getting married soon?
They will be married soon. Yeah.
There's so much to love about him and to embrace. And I'm not saying that if circumstances were different that we couldn't have embraced Jack Eichel that way, but it just feels a little different with Alex Tuck because of the backstory with him. Yeah. Because of the Tim Conley stories, the street hockey stories, pictures of him wearing Sabres jerseys. I'm sure the stories would be similar if Jack Eichel went to Boston. You know what I mean? Like how he'd be embraced there.
I honestly think he will at the end of his career.
Yeah. He made a comment once in an interview back in Boston with a local news channel about how it would be a dream to go play for Boston. I think when he is a free agent, they're going to be at the top of his list for sure.
For sure. In a few years, I think he absolutely will do that.
Yeah. So, but do you have any final thoughts, Hurls?
No, other than obviously, I think we kind of summed it up. We don't need to get into it again. Other than honestly, the next 2 weeks, as a Sabres fan, for your own mental health, take some time off. Maybe read into some of the contract rumors, do some research on free agents, maybe some of the NHL draft prospects. Find ways to get excited because obviously this is going to sting. And I think the ways to do that are, as we just discussed, like remember what this team has right now and what they're going to be for the next 5 to 10 years. They are set up as well as any organization in the league. And for us to say that 2 years ago from today, to be where we are right now, as horrible as this is, and is like, of course this happened. Hollywood couldn't write this type of script. Hollywood couldn't have written
the Quentin Tarantino movie, man. I swear to God.
Yeah, but I'm
really
just saying, in terms of another script, a more positive script, Hollywood couldn't have written the Alex Tuck script, or how this team got Devin Levi and almost made the playoffs and are consistently making good decisions to turn around this organization. And that last month of the season and everything else that could possibly happen this offseason to put this team in position to not only make the playoffs next season, but to potentially win the Atlantic Division, to make a run in the playoffs, get to the Eastern Conference Final. Who knows? You get in and you have a team that can do it, especially a young team with a little bit of injury luck. Who knows what could happen next year? I would love to be here a year from today talking about the Sabres in the Stanley Cup final against the Vegas Golden Knights and Jack Eichel. So be optimistic, be hopeful, and be excited for the Sabres team in the future after everything that just happened. Because if you're not, you're going to go crazy.
Look at some of our live viewers are still hanging in there with us. Thanks. Griff has been with us since the start of this. So shout out, Griff. Thanks for hanging out. Sticking with us from start to finish through this agonizing hour of hockey, Jack Eichel, Vegas Golden Knights, Stanley Cup champion talk. But again, I digress. Better things down the line at the end of the tunnel for the Buffalo Sabres. I really do believe it. Those are my final thoughts. I think that I'm still happy with the return from the trade. This doesn't change that. I wear my Alex Tuck jersey with pride. And I can't wait till the next time we're live to talk some draft coverage, some free agency stuff. I'm sure I know we're going to have on some analysts, some people who put a lot of time and effort and, sweat and tears into draft coverage and, scouting these players that will be NHL players, hopefully someday be playing in the NHL. And then obviously, covering the latest in trade and free agency rumors. We'll be here on Two Goalies One Mic to give you all of that coverage and more. So remember, guys, it's been brought to you by Outlet Liquor, the place to buy a case over on Georgian Boulevard. Remember, if you ever need any adult beverage needs from Outlet Liquor, let them know the boys from Two Goalies One Mic sent you. I'm sure they'll take care of you. So, Hurls, as a pleasure. Thanks for, I know it's only, what is it? What time is it there right now? It's a little after 9, right?
9:28. So
9:28. It's 12:30 essentially in the morning here in Buffalo. Got to be up early tomorrow. So, you have a good night, bud. We'll talk to you soon, and I will hang up and listen. Talk to you guys.